got the track all soldered, and I probably should have showed that step. Not necessarily the soldering, but what I did, I took a sheet of pink Post-it note and I cut it into 4 strips lengthways, stacked them, cut them across, and made, about 30 little squares. Then I just taped them all along this layout everywhere I wanted to solder. And then it was just a simple automation of moving down the layout. Just everywhere you see a pink Post-it note, soldered a joint. What you're seeing here is when I put that brown craft paper underneath the track, it was so that I could lay out a track plan and trace it and modify it if I needed to. And as you can see, this is actually the 3rd layout onto here. The first one was in black, and I liked that layout. The only thing was, for me, it was just a little too linear, and so I decided to mess with some angles. And so the red that you can see was the 2nd track plan modification, and the only problem with that one, I like that one as well. Up in this industrial area here, it got rather busy and it didn't really have a nice flow. And the more I looked at it, the more I began to dislike it, because I just got to think that what would a railroad do? They're not going to spend more money than they need to. They're going to make it as simple as they can to get to their industries, because all that track work requires maintenance, costs money, and that's not what they're about. So funny thing, I modified my first original drawing. That original drawing, it went linear right on down here and just did a simple 90-degree turn in the corner. And that was one of the reasons why I didn't go with it. I liked the flow of it, but that 90-degree turn, just linear down the front here, it was almost like it was in 2D. And I didn't care for that. I wanted some more sweeping curves, so I tweaked that plan to what you see now, and this is the plan we're going to go with. So what I'm doing now is I'm cutting around the track, lifting the brown craft paper, and then I will trace the layout onto the blue foam. And as you can see, a pan around here, you can see I've already removed the craft paper here, so craft paper still remains underneath the track. I'll trace around this track, and when I lift it, I'll know exactly where it needs to go back, and this will give me my guidelines to place my cork. So I'm going to cut away for now. I'm going to continue on lifting my craft paper, and then we'll come back once we're back to blue again. Alrighty, folks, we'll catch you in a little bit. Bye-bye. Welcome back. Well, here is the track plan with the craft paper pulled up and all the track laid down on the blue foam. I cut around all the track, pulled the paper, left the track, and I traced around the track with a marker. And so now when I pull this track up, the track plan will still be on the foam, and I'll know where to put my cork. And that will be the next step when I come back. So we'll see you then. Okay, everybody, we're back. And what we have to show here now is currently the state of the layout without doing a time lapse on the cork roadbed on the layout. As you can see right here, the track has been pulled up, and what remains is the craft paper that remained underneath the track. When I cut around the track, lifted the track, pulled up the scrap, all that remained was the track plan in craft paper. And then as we pan around here, rather than do a time-lapse video, I laid this out so I can show the steps that I took. So the craft paper is up, and what remains here now is the tracing of the track plan so I know right where I need to put my cork. I did one of these little boxes around each of my turnouts. So what I did, instead of piecing the cork in at the diverging route, I went to Hobby Lobby and I've got 4 different thicknesses of sheet cork. And I made 4 templates for the turnouts. I placed the turnout on the thin cardboard and I traced around it, and that gave me a footprint of my turnouts. And I would put that on the sheet cork, and I end up with 1 piece of cork fitted for the turnout. And so that's what I did on this track plan. So we come on back here and you can see how they fit in. I used the Loctite PL 300 foam board adhesive to put the cork onto the blue foam, and where I layered my various thicknesses of cork to get my elevation changes, I used white glue. Once I white glued it, I just used a lot of track T-pins, so I didn't have to just place a bunch of weight on it. Just T-pin it down really well, and it'll dry with no air bubbles underneath. Okay, as you can see right here, talking about the track elevation changes, you can see the thickness here of our HO cork roadbed, and in the back on the industry line you can see quite a bit of thickness change. And so that's one of the 4 layers that I use. I could have used N-scale cork like some people do with the HO to represent that change, but I just wanted to go with sheets of rolled cork and just get her done. So you can see right here just how nice those various thicknesses do match up. And as it comes up here to the main line, you can see how it steps up just a little bit at a time. And of course, where it comes into the turnout, it makes a very nice smooth transition. I don't think I'm going to have any problems with derailments in that area. So here it just shows the cork down onto the blue foam. As we move down here, we can see now I've painted the blue foam and the cork with a dirt brown latex paint. And we come around this bend, and now we have the track back installed. It's white glued down very lightly, and T-pins hold it in place. And I use a steel rule to go along my track when I T-pin it to keep it nice and straight. Okay, I want to show you a little tip that I use on my turnouts. You know, all of us have experienced one time or another turnout that goes bad, and then we have to get in there and use some water to unglue the ballast and pry on it with a little putty knife, and we have quite a mess. Well, years ago when I first got started into N-scale, the guys that kind of took me under the wing, they showed me take your clear packing tape and put a layer on the bottom of your turnout. There we go. You can see the shine. And tape the bottom of the turnout except where your throw bar is. So when you ballast this turnout, the ballast is just going to go as far as the packing tape, and it won't actually glue down to the layout. And you can use small track nails, and you can put them in the little holes here where your throw bar is. And if you need some additional track pins, put them along the outside rail, kind of hidden out of sight, ballast over top of them, and that'll hold the turnout from moving. But if you need to remove it, you remove the rail joiners, and this will slip right off your cork, and you won't have a big mess, and you won't have damage to your other track, and it just saves a lot of headache, guys. It really, really does. Okay, one thing, a couple of things I wanted to say in this segment. Everybody likes to have at least one big scene, as they call it. For me, I messed around with 4 variations of this track plan until I settled on what we have here. I love the way the yard was designed. I never had an issue with that. I knew where my industries were going to be along this back wall. But the transition from the yard down to the industrial area is where I had a fit. My original track plan was just too linear, as I said. I tried playing with this curve up here, and as you can see on the previous segment with all the different magic marker colors on the craft paper, down in this area was a diagonal main and siding runaround, and that was fine. I liked it, but coming from that area into the industrial area, it just didn't flow nice for me. I kept having an issue with it, and so finally I went back to the drawing board again, and I ended up kind of with this S-curve with a little bit of straight in the middle. And I really like the flow of this, as when you stand here you can see the train coming at you on an angle, and it flows nice into the curve. And so in addition to that nice sweep, I also built up the cork a little bit as we went around this curve, to also give a visual of a slight mound. Very, very gradual. Your eye will see it, your brain will fill in the rest, and it won't have to be a hump that will derail. And so I just built up the thin layers of cork on this curve, and while it's going to be operating at a very slow speed, and I really didn't need to do any super elevation, I chose to, again, just for a visual. It's a very, very thin, super thin super elevation. That's not going to give me any issues, but I think it'll look rather nice as it comes down around that curve. To also show you the thicknesses of this cork that I bought, you can see as we come down into this industrial area, it steps down, and even though you can see the steps, it really is very gradual. It's very smooth, and it's not going to hump down coming down to the bottom of the ramp. When you get down here to the industry, it really is quite thin. And again, you could have used N scale cork, but I chose to do it this way because you're going to need some sort of a gradual incline anyway, and I really didn't want to use plaster. I just wanted to keep it cork, and so that's what we did here. One other thing I wanted to show before I wrap this up. When I pulled all this track up, I started down here at the end of the layout, and I actually soldered this layout into segments while it was still in place. The very first piece that you see down here on the very bottom, okay, that is the very first piece you see at the end of the layout. As I took the segments apart, I stacked them one on top of the other so that the very top piece is the piece that goes after the yard area. So this way here, I don't have a bundle of track wondering what goes where, and you know, a big nightmare. So I just simply take this very top piece here, okay, this goes on the very end of the yard. The next piece comes around the sweep and right on down through here. So the next, I'm going to wrap this up, and the next video segment will be this all painted brown with the track installed, and that'll be it. And so we will catch you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Okay, everybody, we're back. Now we have the blue foam all painted brown. We got the track back installed on all of the new cork that's been down. And we'll just give a slow pan here of the track plan that's been built. And I'll come on down off this little step stool, come around the bend here into the yard that you already saw, and we have a little train waiting to make a run. And we'll check this out. Okay, as I said before, I'm using the NCE power cab, and so let us make a little run. Okay. Get ahead of the train a little bit and back up so you can see it come around this curve with a little bit of super elevation. I had a little bit of tough time with the visual, being we got light in the background. But here it comes down the hill. Just a little bit of super elevation. Moving for a visual. And what I've done here, I got power routed Pico turnouts. So I've flipped the turnout to the diverging route with the insulated rail joiners down on this end where the sawmill is going to be. So when it takes that leg, it'll stop on its own. I don't have to run after it and watch it go off the table. Here we go. Okay, so now I'll just come on back to my power cab. I'll change direction. Put the engine back into connection. Okay, here we change direction. We should have a light at the rear of the cab when we get down here. And let's see here. I'll just move it back by hand just to, there we go. And we'll see how it backs up the route. The next two steps that I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little backboard, just painted sky blue for now. That'll help a little bit with the light coming through the blinds, sharpen up the video quite a bit. And of course, I'll move on to my wiring. I'll put in all my drop feeders and my main bus line. That'll be a whole separate video in the next segment. And I won't worry about the front fascia yet until I get all done with my contoured landscaping. I'll get down here. Let me get a little bit of momentum, so let me pull it down to 0. And there it is. Okay, folks. Thank you for watching this segment, and I will catch you next time with the next update. Bye-bye.